This is Coding Keywords Telegram weekly training, and today we are going to continue our series on Python. We've been working on the chat messenger app we're building on Python. This is Scratch programming and the most popular tool used to teach children coding. And so I had a coding class today with some children, and we went through an activity that I felt would be helpful in understanding some of the concepts of programming, and that's why we're doing it today. We're just going to do it briefly, and then we'll now move to Python. So children get to learn programming using software like this, and they get to build games and animations. So it's very colorful, it's not complex, and it's easy for them to learn. So I discovered that even as adults, there's a lot we can learn by using a tool like this. What we're going to be looking at is how we can have a task and then we write a program to solve that task. We have the cat here. The cat is going to ask us for our name, and then it's going to say hello and to add our name. Usually in Scratch, you want to set what happens at the beginning of the game. So you go to events, and the beginning is the first event. So you take this instruction there, when green flag clicked. So we have a green flag just above the stage here, which we would click to start testing the game after we have written the programs. So here we have the commands or the instructions or the codes. And over here we have the workspace where we build the codes. Here we get to tests. So this is how children learn programming. So we have our green flag instruction here just for us to control the beginning. And next up, our cat is going to ask us for our name. So to do that, we come over to sensing and we take this ask instruction. So we see the ask instruction there, what's your name? And we can test it by just clicking the green flag. So we click on the green flag and we see what's your name, and then you can type your name there and then press enter. It just ends there. So for us not just to end with an action being executed, we need to use variables. Variables are used to record what happens. For example, the program needs to be able to take note of the name I entered, and so we have to use a variable for that. So I'm going to come over to variables and I'm going to create a variable called name. So I click on variables and I make a variable and I'm going to call it name. And then I now have to assign whatever was typed after the ask instruction was executed to this variable called name. And when I'm able to keep track of the variable, then I can give a greeting. So the next thing I have to do is to find a way to assign the variable. So if I come over to this sensing, whatever the user types after this ask instruction is executed is stored in this variable called answer. So I'm going to take this answer out. I'm going to use it. And then I come over to variables. I have the name variable here, which I want to use to take note of whatever the user answered. And then I'm going to take this set instruction. So I have this set instruction here. And if I click on this arrow here, I can click on the name variable. So I want to set the name variable to answer. So we begin to see the connection. We have the green flag instruction, which starts the activity or the game. I have the ask instruction, which is presenting a question. The moment I run the ask instruction, there's going to be a text field for me to type my name. And whatever I type after I press enter is stored in this variable called answer. And then I'm going to assign whatever I typed to the variable called name. So variables are very useful in programming. Next up, I need the instruction that would make the cat say the greeting. And all I need to do is go over to looks and I take the say instruction. So I have the say instruction here. And by default, it says hello for 2 seconds. But I don't want the cat to say hello for 2 seconds. Rather, I want the cat to say a greeting that has my name. So for me to do that, I need to come over to operators and take an instruction that will help me do that. And it is this join instruction. So I'm going to replace hello with this join. By default, we have apple and banana, but I don't want to join apple and banana. What I want to join is hello and my name. So I'm going to go to variables and I'm going to take this name variable and I'm going to put it here. So the cat is going to say hello, and it's also going to add that using the join to whatever name I entered, which was stored in answer and which I assigned to the name variable. So we're pretty at the end of the little activity. Let me run it now. So I have the green flag instruction. I've clicked on it. So I've typed my name and I press enter, and there you go. The cat said hello with my name for 2 seconds. So I'm going to increase the screen size again. I run it. What's your name? So I'm putting Peter there, and there you go. Hello, Peter. So now this is a simple game, and usually the children get excited when they see games like this and they're able to demonstrate this. But here we see the importance of variables. Variables are very useful in programming. We use it to take note of things that happen, and variables vary. Their values vary. So you see, I entered different names in the course of testing this game, and each time it changed, but it was still able to display hello and whatever was the value of the name variable. So this is to demonstrate the importance of variables, and this is also to demonstrate the importance of studying the connections. This is a program. This is written in Scratch, and blocks are used, unlike in programming languages like Python, where you write the codes in form of text. Here we have blocks, which is easy for the children to understand. And here we see that we can take this name variable here and see that there is another occurrence here. So we see name. So we see there's a connection between this and this. And then we also see answer, which is a result of what comes out of this instruction here. So we see the colors here. So there's a connection between this and this. And then we get to see that if you want to understand this program, you can start from here, see the instructions around it. So we see this is a join instruction. So we created a variable name and we're joining the string hello with the value in name. So that's this. And then next up, this join instruction is placed inside this say instruction. And what it does is just going to say whatever is here as a string. So we see that join connects hello string with the value of the name variable. And then next up, we have this instruction, which is the set instruction, and it's also working on the name variable. So it is setting or assigning the name variable to whatever is in answer. Whatever is in answer will be assigned to name. So name is equal to answer. And where does answer come from? Answer comes from this ask instruction. So whatever is in the ask instruction will be assigned to, let's call it an answer variable. So we see the connection. This one is connected to this, and this is connected to this. And we can see how they are connected together in a sequence to run the program. So I just use this example just to demonstrate how programming works. Every statement does an activity or runs a part of the code, but the beauty of the entire code is the linkage of the statements, the connection of the statements, and how different actions are passed from one stage to another to achieve the overall goal. So I found out that using languages like Scratch, which children use, is also helpful for adults in learning some of the important concepts of programming. So in Scratch, you also have control statements where you have if statements for you to work with conditions. You have repeat statements for you to work with loops. And these are very much the basics of programming. You can try out Scratch, develop educational games, mathematical games. You try adding different characters and then set up creative games or animations. You can work on the backdrops. It's easy to learn. It's easy to pick. You can also consider learning it to teach children coding. It makes you creative. It helps you to solve problems. It helps you to improve your logical reasoning. and this is just an introduction to Scratch programming. So I'm going over to the Python environment. I'll do a quick recap. So first of all, we are using a tool, Google Colab, and this is an online IDE where we can write our codes and test them without necessarily having to download Python to our system. So we can connect to this website, write our codes, and it can be saved directly to our Google Drive. It's a tool you can use to easily learn Python. So we took up a challenge. We said we're going to learn Python by looking at a chat messenger app. And in our first class, we learned the Python fundamentals by going through the 6 phases, which were all related to our chat messenger app. So first of all, we tried to look at the basic syntax and outputs. And we had these codes here. So thankfully, Python helps us just write a few codes and we achieve much. So here we have our chat messenger and we have a welcome message here. And we just use the print statement. And we said that the print function, which we're using here, is used to output something to the user. Okay, so now I'd like to say, just like we saw in Scratch programming, whenever you are writing programs, there are 3 entities involved: the programmer, the user, and then maybe the programming tool. So whenever you're writing a program, you have to think about the user, and sometimes you send messages to the user, and that message will be displayed. So the way you send messages to the user or you display in the output in Python is using the print function. So we also saw that functions are used to do actions in programming. So whenever you want to display something to the output and it appears maybe on the console, you use the print function. So you write the word print, and then you have these parentheses, and then you put in quotes whatever you want to print if you know what you print, if you know what you want to print exactly. So if you have it as a string, in this case, we want to print exactly welcome to PyChat, you put it in quotes. And then next, we also want to print start typing your message, we also put it in quotes. So it's very straightforward. Once we know the rules and we follow it, we can always print a message on the screen. So when I run this, just click on that to run. That's how you run it in Google Colab. And then now we can see the result exactly as we have it there. Welcome to PyChat, start typing your message. So that's the simple way to output on the screen using Python. Next up, we're looking at user input and variables. Now we begin to appreciate the need to use variables. So next up, we are using another function. So you see, this is the input function. And whereas we use the print function to give a message to the user or output something on the screen, we use the input function to receive an input or receive a string or receive a text from the user. So if you remember in Scratch, we use the ask. So what we use ask to do in Scratch is similar to what we're using input here. So let me just briefly go. So this is the ask instruction. This is the ask instruction in Scratch. And this is the input function in Python. So now we are saying enter your name and press enter. So the user has to type their name and press enter. And then we are assigning whatever the user entered to the variable called name. So let's go back to Scratch and you see what we did here. Whatever the user entered, which is by default stored in the answer variable, we're assigning it to the name variable. So that's similar to what we're doing here. So name, which is our variable, is equal to whatever the user entered. We have to take note of it using this variable. If we don't take note of it, we cannot use it anywhere else again. So now we're using it here, and then we're printing the greeting, and here we're using the formatted string. So unlike in this case, when we will just enter exactly what we want to enter in the string, here we're not just entering a message, but we're also entering a message in addition to the variable. So we see the connection. We have name here and we have name here. So we are printing hello, plus whatever name was entered, which we got from here, and then welcome to pie charts. So because it's a combination of the string, which we can see in, I think, red or brown, and the variable, which we can see in black, we need to use the formatted string so that I can accept those two formats. And so let me run it here. And then I can have John. So the input function has given me this text area here to type John, and I press enter, and we can see exactly, we have hello, then we have John, and then we have welcome to pie charts. So that's that about input and user input and variables. And next up, we come over to message length check. So beginning to count the functions we have used, the print function, the input function. Now we are going to use len function. So this is what we have. Let me reduce it a bit so that we can see the entire code. And this is what we have. So we're still using the input function to get the user to type their message, because this is a chat messenger app. So the user gets to type their message, following the input function, and then we store it in the message variable. And then we send this variable message to the len function. So you begin to see input is a function, len is a function, print is a function. They all have these parentheses after them. So whenever you see a name and you have that parenthesis, you know is a function, and that function is carrying out an action. So we send message to len. What it does is that it checks how many characters the message has. And what we want to do is we want to be able to count the characters. And then after that is done here, we now move over to this if statement is a conditional statement. And if we go to Scratch, I showed you the if statements. So you see that part of the logic or the logical process of programming is that there are times when you need to apply a condition to test something, and then the execution of the program will depend on the result of the test of that statement. So the if statement and also the if else statements, they are used for that. So anytime you need to test a condition, anytime the execution of the program doesn't just flow, but you need to test based on the condition, you can use the if statement. So we saw how the if is used in Scratch. This is how it is used in Python. So we have if, and then we have the condition. So it's going to check the length. So if you see length here, you trace it back, this is it, and length is receiving the number of characters of the message entered, and it's going to check if it's less than or equal to 200, then it's going to print the message. So here we are still using the formatted string. We have the message here, and then it's also printing. You type, then it also returns enough characters. Else, that is if this condition is not true, and in which case, if length is greater than 200, it's going to print an error message. So it's not going to return the message or the length. So we see this is more like a logical sequence. You receive something, you check it, and then you do something based on the result of the check. So now let me run it. So I'm running it, and if I just say, let me try and enter something that is pretty long, and let's see what will happen. So let me say I'm entering the national anthem, the old one. Okay, I hope this is more than 200. So I press enter. Oh, 148. I didn't get to that. All right, so I'm still going to, I want to be able to enter something that is more than that. So I'm copying it and pasting it. Okay, heroes path shall never be in vain to serve with hearts and might one nation found in freedom, peace, and unity. And let me add a bit of the pledge. I pledge to Nigeria, my country. So hopefully this is more than 200. Now we have seen when it was 148, it was less than 200, and this part executed. It gave me the message and gave me the length. And then this time around, I press enter, and there you go. It says message too long. You typed 427 characters. So we begin to see that this is a section of code that doesn't just execute one after the other. So usually codes are executed one after the other. You have this line, then you have this line. Then when it comes here, this will be checked, and based on the results, if this is true, then these will be executed. If it is not true, then else, what comes within the else will be executed. And then we also saw indentation in Python. So we have indentation, meaning that these two codes here, the print and the print, which do not start on the same line as the if statement, depict that they are within the block of this if, and this one depicts that it's within the block of this else. So when it comes to Python, we use indentation to do this type of statement. So when you have a statement that is within the block of another statement or another line, you use indentation, meaning that it doesn't start on the same line. And then usually it's indicated with this colon. So in other programming languages, you would have braces like this. You would have a brace like this to signify the block of code that is connected. So, but in Python, you use indentation. So we have less characters to use. So I'm coming over here now. This is formatting and cleaning messages. So we started with just sending a message to the user using the print statements, and then we moved over to using the inputs to receive something from the user, and then print, to add a string to what we received from the user and print. And then we moved over to checking what was entered by the user and then setting up a condition to test. And then we're now moving over to formatting and cleaning messages. So here we have formatting and cleaning messages, and we are going to use more functions. So we have the title function. This can help us set the capitalization. We have the upper, the lower, we have the replace. And here we go. So here we want to use the input function to receive the name of the user, and then we will send what we have received to the name variable. But before we do that, we will apply another function to what we received. So we have a longer statement here. So we have the input function. It's asking the user for their name. When the user enters their name, it will now apply this title function here. And then we go over to what we had before, input the message, inputs, type your message. We also get the message from the user, send it to the message variable, and now we use a formatted string in the print function to add the name and the message. So by now you'll be able to see there's a pattern. Whenever you want to join a variable and a string with another variable, then you use the formatted string. All you need to do is just after the opening parenthesis of the print function, you put F. That tells you it's formatted string, and then the variables can be added in these type of braces. So now let me run it. So I'm going to run it. What the title function does is that it takes whatever you send to it as a string, and it only makes the first character there to be in capital letter. So I'm going to come here, enter your name, and let me just enter John, and I'm entering it in all caps, and I press enter, and then enter the message. And I'm just going to say, hello, welcome to my group. And then I press enter, and then you can see what has happened. We have John says, that is consistent with what we have here as the pattern, the name, which I entered as John, and says, and then the message. So if you study it very well, you will see that you'll be able to master the pattern, and you'll be able to do something similar. So just to note that I entered all caps, but because the title function was applied, it changed it to this format. So now let me see if I change it from title and I make it lower. Okay, so that's another function. And then I'm going to run it. And then I'm going to still maintain all caps John. I press enter and I say hello. Okay, sorry, this is all caps. I'm just going to say hello, welcome to my world, and I press enter. You see now it is all lower, and that's the effect of the function. So I'm just going to change it back to title, and then we go down. Here we have the fifth thing we're looking at: storing and viewing charts. Storing and viewing charts, and here we're going to look at lists and loops. Okay, so now here our code, and in this portion of code, what we want to do is that we want to be able to add more than one message. So previously, all we've been doing is we just add just the name from the inputs, and then the message, we just add one message. So we just have one message, and then we do our condition or we apply our functions. But now we want to store more than one message. So we want a system, or we want the program to run in such a way that the user will enter more than one message, and then we can print them together. So to do that, we are going to have to use something like a loop. So what we're going to use is a while loop. While. So it says while true, we want to send this input function to request for the user to type a message, to keep typing messages. So it's going to be running and making a request to the user while true. So whenever we say while true, we're just trying to say, just keep doing it. True means it's always correct, it's always positive, it's always going to happen. Okay, so we say while true, let the user input the message, and when they are done with the messages, then they should type exit to quit. So that's the condition. So when the user types exit, then we're going to stop receiving messages from them. So that's what happens here. So this is input. It gives the message to the user and is stored in the MSG variable. So now we come over here, whatever the user enters will be stored in MSG. We're going to check if MSG.lower, so whatever the user enters, if it's equal to exit, then we break. So break means we stop the while. We stop the while. It means we end the request to the user. So you see that this MSG statement all the way up to here is within the block of the while. Because of indentation, it doesn't start on the same line. So that tells you all of these executes while true. So whatever is going to stop, or what is going to stop this execution is the break. And then we come over here, and then when you look at something like this, you have messages.append. So when you look at something like this, you look for where messages appears, and it appears here. So this messages is a list. So this is how we create a list. And what it means is it's more than one variable. Why is it more than one variable? We're expecting more than one entry from the user. So what happens in the previous case, or what happened in the previous case, is that we expected only one message. And so we just set the input function to message. But over here, we're expecting more than one. So we don't just want one, we want the user to be able to enter more than one. And so we are creating a list. It's one variable, but we need a list of string variables. So over here, we have messages.append. So messages.append means take this list and add. Append means to add. Okay, so append adds to the end. It adds to the end of the messages list whatever was entered. So if you look at this, you can see the connection. We have message here, which is coming from whatever the user inputted, and it's sent as a parameter into this append function, which helps us to add a content to messages, which is the list. So we can see the connection clearly. This is messages here, is the list. This is messages here. This is MSG, which is the current entry from the user, and this is it here. And then this is the condition to stop this while statement, else the while statement will keep running. Okay, so this is quite tricky, but if you keep looking at it, you'll be able to understand it. And you can also attempt to do a similar statement, can attempt to do it, and that's the way you can master it. So we come over here and we see that, okay, let me just round up here. If the user types exit, is going to break. Break means that all this block of code will stop running. So this while means that this will run, it will come over here, it will go back again, it will keep requesting for the user. So this is a loop. It will keep executing because we have while. Then the moment the user types exit, it will break. Then we're going to leave this block and move down here. So that's how it works. And then we're over here, and then we have a print statement, and then we're just printing chat history. We have this /n here, which means start on a new line. And then we have a for statement here. This for statement is going to have a look at our list. So we're seeing messages again. We see messages here. We see messages here. We see messages here. So here we created a messages variable, set it up as a list. Here we keep adding to the contents of the list. And over here we are looping through that messages now. So at this stage we have messages with all the contents. This is how we loop through it one by one. And here we're going to print whatever is the contents. So we come over here, we have print. By indentation, we see that it is one step in from the for statement. That tells you that this for statement is going to keep running until you get to the end of the messages list, and each time is going to be printing. So we have M here as a variable, checking through the messages list, and then it's going to be printing. Okay, so now let me run it. So I'm going to run it, and then it says type a message or exit to quit. Type a message. So let me just type Monday, then enter. Is still asking me again. Tuesday, enter. Is still asking me again. So the while is running. It's still true. Wednesday, enter. Is still asking me again. Thursday, is still asking me again. Then maybe I'm done. Then I type exit, because that's the rule. Once you type exit, it's going to check. It's going to check every time. The moment it sees exit, then it's going to break from this while. So let me press enter, and then there you go. So it now leaves this block of code, and then it comes over here. It prints chat history on a new line. So you can see that space is there, and then you see how it now takes the messages list, which has all of them, and then it prints them one by one. So that's this code. I just decided to explain it again. And this video is going to be on YouTube, so you can go over it again and keep going over it. And then you should be able to understand how the while works. So finally, we're going to look at organizing our code with functions. Organizing our code with functions. And we see that over here, we have used lower function, append function, print function, input function. All of these are built-in functions that Python gives us to help us do different tasks. Now, what we can do is create our own function. So to create our own function, we use the def keyword, and then we write our function name. In this case, it is send_message. Now, it will not work if we use send space message. No, it's not going to work. So it has to be connected. So we can use an underscore. We can use numbers in between. We have to start with an alphabet, but then we can use, or we can start with an alphabet or underscore, but we can use numbers. So our function is called send_message, and then our function has, the parentheses after it, and then we now have the parameters we need for our function to work. So for our function to work, we need two parameters, the user and the MSG. So when Whenever you see it like this, you're looking for where user occurs over here. So you keep checking. Here we have user. Okay, so that is what this parameter here that we're entering here is going to be used here. And then we have MSG. We keep checking. We see MSG here. So what happens is that our send underscore message needs two parameters, user and MSG. So it's going to take the MSG, apply the len to it, check. This is similar to what we saw before. And then it's going to return a formatted string where the user will be applied the title function. And then we have this string variable here, and then we have the MSG. Now, this is quite some advanced programming for the first class. I really appreciate that. This might not be easy to just take, but it's something you can go over again. So let's look at it again. Send or message is the name of our function. It requires two. It needs to be supplied two things to work with. The first one is user. And that first one, we're going to apply a title function. Remember, the title function was used in phase 4 to format a string so that even though you enter all caps, only the first letter there will be uppercase. So we take whatever comes in as user, apply the title function. We have a formatted string. And then we have a normal string, which will always appear as says, and then we add the message. All of this is returned. So our function is going to give a result, which we put here in return. And then this will be returned if MSG is checked using the len function and it is less than or equal to 200. Remember the colon. And if that's not the case, then we return this error here with the number of characters from len. So this is the definition of send underscore message. When you're creating a message, you define it using def keyword. So this is the definition. Return tells you what the message will bring out. And then here, this is where we use the function. So we have send underscore message. And then we have a comma here separating two entries. So we're sending Ada and we're sending hello pie chart. So Ada in this case, if we trace it up here, is the user. And then hello pie chart, if we trace it up here, is MSG. So this is where we define the function. And this is where we use it. And we're using send underscore message function is a print function. So what happens is send underscore message, we're going to look for what it returns. It's either going to return this if the message is less than or equal to 200, or it will return this if it is greater than 200 with an error. So this return is the result that would always be given from this send underscore message. It's either going to be this or this, and then it's going to be a formatted string. You can see F here is formatted. And because it's a formatted string, it can come directly into this print. So that's what happens. This is Ada, which is the user. Remember that the user will be applied a title function. So let's see what it looks like. We run it, and there you go. The title function is applied. We don't just have small ada, but uppercase ada, and that's what we have. That's just a recap, and I believe by now it should be clearer. Especially if you attended the class last time around, this should be clearer now. I've gone over it again, and the first class, which was last week's own, is on YouTube. I'm also going to put today's own on YouTube. I'm going to put it, this is like a more elaborate explanation, and this also shows a connection with when we use Scratch. So we use Scratch, and we saw some similarities. So you get to find out that when kids learn coding, they're actually learning the basics, which is applied. So whether you're doing JavaScript, or you're doing Python, or you're doing Java, or you're doing C, or you're doing C++, you're going to be dealing with control flow statements like the if. You know, here we have repeat, we have forever, and these are similar to like the for statement we saw in Python. and the while statement. You'll be using control flow statements. You're going to be using variables. We saw how to use variables. And then you're also going to be running codes that executes from top to bottom. And then sometimes when you use these control flow statements, then you alter that sequential execution. So that's what we saw. So this is a recap. We have our chat messenger app, and then we looked at basic syntax and output, user input and variables, message length check. We use functions, formatting and cleaning messages, formatting and cleaning messages. We use more functions, storing and viewing chats. We used our loop, and also the condition, and then organizing code with functions. We saw how to define functions. So let me just add that if you're watching on YouTube, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to this channel so that you get to see videos on Python and other aspects of it, like AI. So we're going to have videos on AI very soon. We're going to have a video on how to build AI agents very soon. So I'm doing some research on that. And then we also have videos on data analysis. We have lots of videos on data cleaning, data visualization, data storytelling. And we'll have a wide range of things to learn. We're going to have design videos on how to use Canva. A lot of things that we interface with in tech, we're going to be having videos about them on this channel. So subscribe to the channel so you get to see when the videos are uploaded. I also like you to like the video and stay connected. So also we are here on Telegram. This training is actually on Telegram. So I encourage as many people to join on Telegram. We have weekly trainings. Thank you very much for joining.